Hello, everyone. It's Charlton. Please subscribe to my channel. Tap the notification bell, and I would appreciate it, Major. This is Jussie Smollett. Jussie Smollett, who's now been indicted again for this whole. People think it was a hoax. I'm here to tell you that it wasn't a hoax. I mean, it was a hoax, but not the kind you think. He didn't do this to himself. And I'm not absolutely positive of that, but I'm way more close to positive of that than the other way around. Okay. So, I mean, and there's a lot. I mean, at the very first time this all came out, I guess when it was starting to become news that he did it to himself, that's what people think. Immediately, I'm like, man, that is so weird, because this is like a wet dream for Trump, all right? Like, how you can't get any more perfect for Trump. And therein lies the problem, because it's just too perfect, dude, and that's why it's bogus. There's many other things, and I'm not going to get into a bunch of specifics, here. I may make videos about this, and I probably will. We'll see, as this goes along. He's due to be in court, I think, February 24th, pretty quick, so this is going to cruise right along. And he's got counsel. His counsel totally denies this. And his counsel, I think it's a female, who's probably no joke, says those two brothers. I don't even have them up here. I don't need it. I don't need it. I know. I got just a good feel for this, man. And she says they're lying. I originally made a video or two, maybe one or two, basically stating a pretty strong case like I am here. And I got scared out of it by people in the comments. They said, you sound foolish. And I mean, basically, the reason I pulled my videos was one main thing, was how did the two brothers know to be there at that time when he was basically getting home from from wherever he was coming, And so that was my problem. I concluded Jussie Smollett had to have told him. What I didn't know, and what I've later learned a few months later, I don't know, I can't remember, and I didn't remake the video, I left it alone. But I'm here to tell you what I think is the truth. What his attorney, that same attorney that says the two brothers are lying, and I think they are, too. I think they are lying too. She said they were there they were waiting for like an hour and a half for him to arrive. They didn't just they weren't there within 10, 15 minutes, half hour. They were waiting for, I think, an hour and a half or 2 hours in the freezing cold, waiting for him to arrive. Because they didn't, and actually his plane got delayed too. Because he just wasn't in on it. And they basically set him up. Now, why did they do that? I have a couple of theories as to why they did that. They either were in trouble with the law, or, somebody singled them out because they knew they were perfect for this. Trump. Who's the first group that Trump courted when running for president? It was even, I guess gun owners, that was a big one. But one of the first formal groups, first formal endorsement he got was from the police. He was huge into getting the backing of the police right out of the chute, very, very early on. Anyways, I mean, basically what I'm suggesting is that he got some help, probably, the cops know all these things. They know all the people that do drugs, who the small dealers are, who the big dealers are, and so forth. And everything is so corrupt by now, man. I mean, Trump is a complete psychopath. He really is, just is, dude. But, what I'm saying is, they just those guys probably, they didn't get set up. They were probably, it's been reported again and again. It's on his phone, Jussie Smollett's phone. Communicating with them, texting them in previous texts going back, whatever, in the last year or so, that he would get drugs from them. I forget what they call it. There was some name for it. I think it was like ecstasy, but there was some other name, some street name for it, or like, I forget what it was. But he got drugs from them. So they sold drugs, at least on a small level. Probably got busted, and probably got busted on purpose. Like somebody, intentionally busted them for this purpose. All right. And then they were just made to do it. Or they were just promised something in exchange for advancement in their career, something, or both. And it's probably the both one, okay? And it wouldn't shock me if this dude right here, this former superintendent which is basically like the commissioner, as I understand it, for Chicago PD, Eddie Johnson, who's now no longer in that position as superintendent, it wouldn't shock me if somebody had something on this individual, in order to basically expedite this, and that he was a player in this. And he was publicly, he was one of the most righteous about going after Smollett, and how he was, just, I don't know what how terrible it was that Smollett had wasted, valuable police resources and everything. He gave very, powerful press conferences on that. And, and he's out of that position because of an incident of a late night of drinking with somebody that wasn't his wife, was found in his vehicle, and a bunch of other stuff. But he's out of the job. And I don't know, dude. I wouldn't shock me if he was compromised, and he was asked to, somebody called in a favor, or whatever. How he got the superintendent job in Chicago was unusual to begin with, because Chicago is such a mess, and the crime is just such a mess. I can't remember exactly how he get it, but he didn't get it under normal circumstances. They put him in that position, and there you go. So, but in terms of my why I believe that. This was a hoax, but not the way everybody thinks. Not the way people think. Like he set it up. He didn't set this up. There's only one way if he set this up, and basically if he himself, was forced to do it. I mean, that's the only thing I could possibly agree to, is that he himself, was busted buying drugs or whatever, and all three of them were basically just forced to do this, and they're forced to go through the meat grinder because it was either that or 20 years, because maybe it was a very large drug buy or something like that. But I don't think so. I think he's just been set up all together and been made to look like a humongous fool, and but not through any major fault of his own, So, and before I get into the various just little things that I think don't make any sense as to why he would have done this to himself, because he didn't. But the prosecutor, the special prosecutor who's been appointed, who's right there, his name is Dan Webb. And I covered this in a different video when I was talking about, a totally different topic, which I have talked to at length, endlessly, about my theory, my very strong belief that Trump and Hillary fixed the 2016 election. And when I was talking about Ukraine, because this is kind of one of the focal points of that was Ukraine, and one of them ended up at Firtash, Dmitry Firtash, the Ukrainian oligarch with all kinds of ties to Russia and Putin and Russian organized crime. Daniel Webb was one of three U.S. lawyers, very high-profile, powerful U.S. attorneys that were hired by Firtash starting in 2013 through 2014 to be his legal team in the United States. He was one of them, as well as Lanny Davis. I've gone through all this. I'm not doing that here. And Michael Chertoff, the former Homeland Security Secretary under Bush. Those three guys. But he was one, okay? And so I found it pretty strange that he was the attorney, the former U.S. attorney based out of Chicago, that was appointed as special prosecutor for this. I mean, this guy's got Trump written all over it, dude. And, obviously the judge, I forget his name, it's Tooman or something like that. He's not super pro-Trump, but he's one of the only Republican judges that was appointed in Cook County. He's Trump. And so that's Exhibit A. Exhibit B is, I mean, this guy's an educated person, all right? We all know there are security cameras everywhere. Why would you set yourself up knowing that you're being recorded somewhere? Somewhere, some building, some car, some restaurant, you're going to be recorded. Why would you do that? You wouldn't do it, okay? And the reason why the two brothers were doing it is because they wanted to be recorded. That's why they go into a store where everybody knows there's going to be surveillance cameras. I think it was a convenience store, for Christ's sake, and they spread it out on the counter, so the camera gets a good view of the mask and all the things they bought, the rope and so forth, So that was another thing. I think in the reports, I think this guy was sort of alluding to, because we don't know everything that they have in evidence, but he was sort of alluding to, I think, that basically these three individuals are sort of caught on various security cameras throughout the city, pointing out things and pointing out cameras. I think I saw that reported. And my question is, who in their right mind would be pointing out cameras? So, because they want the assailants to be recorded. They want the assailants to be shown, but you're being recorded pointing out the camera. I mean, who would do that? And you're just like, well, they won't check this day, so I'm cool. No, of course not. It's totally ludicrous. All right? And that's Exhibit C. I think that's about it. There's probably a couple of others, but I'll have to... I mean, even the rope, the rope around his neck. I don't have that article up here. Which does make him look silly, but he doesn't know what to do. He just got, he did get assaulted by these guys, man, and he didn't know, okay? And so he just doesn't know what to do. He knows that no one's going to believe him. So I don't even know if his friend told him, just leave everything the way it is, leave it on you or whatever. I mean, who would make up the circumstances that basically ended up getting told in the story? If you were formulating the story for it to be fake, you wouldn't do it that way. You wouldn't tell them to tell you, say it's MAGA country. You wouldn't do that. That sounds ridiculous. That sounds exactly like what Trump would say if he wanted to set it up, because he did. All right? And, if you were going to do this, would you really use two black friends, two black guys that to do it? You just wouldn't do that. All these things. There's other things too that I just can't think of at the moment. Indicates to me that he was set up, dude, and I'm gonna follow it. And I'm gonna look. I've looked into other stuff too. Believe me. And I just began. Okay. And there are some circumstances. I see one of the brothers just got a job somewhere as head of security at a restaurant, and that restaurant's basically just opened by somebody who's basically pretty, left-leaning, Bernie guy, Obama guy. And that's how Trump does these things. Believe me. He's real cute. Okay. It's all this controlled opposition or whatever the hell you want to call it. But there's other things there, too, that indicate, for instance, let's say, he was supposedly, I think her name's Tina Chen, who was a friend of the Obamas, who may have even been in the Obama administration very remotely, but is a well-known friend of the Obamas, who I think spent most of her career in Chicago, if I'm correct. She supposedly pulled some strings to get his first indictment pulled or dropped, get the case dropped. So Obama likes this, if that's true, you would assume that Obama's, pro Jussie Smollett, okay? So why would a restaurateur who's basically seemingly pro-Obama hire one of these two guys who basically, I don't know what you say, didn't do Jussie Smollett any favors, that's for damn sure. To be your head of security, unless there was some ulterior thing going on, that I have an idea. I've looked into a few things, and it seems a little strange, couple restaurants right next to each other, immediately next to each other. That's pretty convenient. That's a pretty nice gig. You know, that's not exactly, I think, the easiest thing in the world to do in Chicago. You know, you have an existing restaurant, you open a second one, immediately next door. The two owners look to be like Korean, very wealthy Korean business people, both, I think, foreign nationals. You know, Trump administration has a lot of pull in various countries like South Korea, you know, and there you have it. To just make that happen, whether or not, you know, and that restaurateur probably has no clue of what I'm suggesting, you know, but these things just, they happen, believe me. You know, there's this giant, and this is, I mean, I don't know if it's going to stop, if this is just going to keep going and going and going, getting worse and worse and worse. There's this giant web of bribery and blackmail and you know, everyone's doing things for their own financial benefit and job promotion and landing a job here, landing a job there, and so on. It's completely out of hand, you know. And it's pretty much the story there, dude. That's pretty much the story there. Trump's a psychopath for sure. You know, listen, it doesn't make any difference to me, you know, I mean, what you do. I mean, I'm telling you for you, okay? You know, if I was you, you know, I could think of 1,000 reasons why you're making a huge mistake. And I can't think of one reason, you know, to continue to support. I mean, I'm telling you, for you, for your own benefit. You're doing things that aren't in your own interest. Well, some of them you are because you're, you know, doing criminal things. But regular folks, you're just making a big mistake, man. That's the story there. That is the story there, man. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below. And I will see you in the next video. Later, man.